the shaman. Just don't be afraid to ask, because it's, then I'll know who I'm talking to. So I think we all know what those 5 silences are, and we probably had some experience with them and the importance of them for our awareness life. Okay, here's the program that I would like to follow. I don't know how far we'll be able to get through this, but where far we get, that's where we are. Okay? So I'll start off with a song, and then I think I don't need to do an introduction myself, more than what you already know. Then I'm going to talk about the plan to compare Chaminade and Rosenberg, see how they interact with each other and how they assist one another. I'm going to talk about feelings and needs, and 4 components: feelings, needs, and requests. Then I'm going to do a little bit about hard to hear statements and how we deal with them, the 2 ways of listening to them. I'd like to do a little bit about giraffe and jackals, learning a new language to speak. I think that's an important part of nonviolence, to be able to speak a different language. Then I'll go into Chaminade's words and compare them to Rosenberg, signs, and compare them to Rosenberg. The mind, the perception, feelings, compare that to Rosenberg, passions, and the imagination. I don't think we'll have time to go into the other ones, gratitude and appreciation. But I'll give you some homework and some resources. Okay? And protective use of force. We'll talk about that. Okay? If you have any questions at any time, just shout them out, because we're not going to get through all of it, but whatever we get through will be something that you really understand. My expectation is that whatever we do today, you will be able to use it in your life. So I'd like to begin with a song. Where that came from. Sometimes the computer does not do what I ask. I'm going to start with this song.
I can remake.
See me beautiful, for the best in me. That's what I really am, and all I want to be. Will you take some time? It may be hard to find, but see me beautiful. See me beautiful each and every day. Would you take a chance, and would you find a way to see me shining through in everything I do, and see me beautiful? I start with the song because I think it's really what we're trying to do in our life. We want to see everyone as beautiful and be able to appreciate them. And I think that nonviolent communication and this 5 silences work together and helping us with that. Let's see what this one does. So here's my plan for today. First of all, I want to do an expectation check. And I have given you a piece of paper, okay? I want you to list 5 things that you did since you woke up this morning. Any 5 things. Just write down in any order. It doesn't have to be anything real heavy or anything like that. Just any 5 things. So, example, when I woke up this morning, I stretched, did a little bathing, ate some breakfast, prayed. So there's whatever you did. Okay, you can always write that as I'm talking to. And I'd just like to give kind of get a sense of what you hope you're going to take away from this presentation. So maybe what are some of your hopes and expectations about this presentation about nonviolence and nonviolent communication in the 5 silences? What are some of the things that you hope to learn by the end of this presentation? Just feel free to say it. Yes.
Well, I tried to use the discipline of the 5 silences, in my everyday life and integrate it into how I communicate and how I am. But I find it very challenging when somebody has very different political views, for example, than I. In terms of, I would like to learn how to better build bridges with people who think so differently than I, especially about the political climate.
Okay, so what Linda said was that she would like to know how to deal with a specific aspect of conflict. Let's say when you have somebody who has a different opinion than you have in political, and whether the 5 silences or nonviolent communication shed some light on how we can live together with that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like tying into Linda's, but one is aware of 5 silences and nonviolent communication, whereas the other party may not be. How to deal with that?
Okay, so you're saying that if you are aware of the 5 silences and nonviolent communication, but the other person is not, does that have some kind of a bearing on the way the conversation is going to go?
Right.
How do we deal with that? Okay, so hopefully we can touch on those 2 areas too. Another one? Any ideas? Yes.
To learn ways for myself to become aware of communicating in a form that's not peaceful. I may not be aware of the fact that I'm communicating in a way that is forceful or violent.
Okay, so to give a kind of an awareness of your own self about what are you doing that you're not even aware of that you're communicating in a violent way when you're dealing with another person. So maybe to raise your consciousness level. Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Hopefully to learn a little bit more so that I can explain it to other people. A way to explain what this is, nonviolent communication. Talk about it. If you don't know what it is, how do you explain that?
Okay, so you want to become more knowledgeable and skillful in explaining to people about nonviolent communication and feeling more comfortable with yourself, that you have confidence in yourself to be able to talk to someone about it intelligently and in a way that's going to be not make you look like you're some kind of a wimp. All right, other expectations? Mike, do you have any expectations?
No, actually, someone had mentioned earlier about how to deal with people who don't follow the same rules, and that was my thing.
Okay, so his expectation is how do you deal with people who don't follow the same rules? They have a different point of view. Okay, so that would be some of the things I hope that we can take care of by the end of this. I just want to go through a few disclaimers. I don't have all the answers, okay? And I don't pretend to be. I don't have any degrees. I don't have any certificates in this, all right? So I'm just sharing my own experience, my life experience over the past 75 years, what I've gone through and what I've experienced as a Marianist brother, living the devout life in community and ministries, active ministry, and mostly in teaching and conflicts that I've had with teachers or with students or parents, all those things come to play. But I'd like to learn from you and from your comments and your questions. And I'll be going back over this recorded video to maybe learn from some of the things that we share. Okay? What I'm going to talk about, you already know. So I'm not going to tell you anything really new, right? And also what I will talk about is not intended to change somebody out there. This is intended for you personally to enrich yourself. If you see that it's valuable for somebody else, fine, but it's really, I think, mainly people that are in this room are going to benefit by this and not somebody that's out there. Okay?
Stan?
Yeah.
You know, you have, this takes hard work. It's in small letters.
Yeah.
But actually, that's really, really important. It does take hard work. I think that's what we have to keep in mind.
So I'm assuming that you have some knowledge of this 5 silences, the system of virtues. We talked about that. That you understand the importance of baptism from Father Shaman's point of view. That is to say, we understand baptism as Marian as becoming Christ. That's our whole focus, that we become another Christ. And that you have some understanding of nonviolence. And you believe in it, and you want to live it, or you are already living it. These are my assumptions. Okay? I don't know them if they're not yet. So, okay. You know little or nothing about nonviolent communication. I'm assuming you don't know anything about it. Okay. So my presentation will go something like that. So by the end of this session, I hope that you will see the 5 silences of Father Shaman in a new way. Okay? That you'll be much more attentive to feelings and needs in all that you meet, and that you will understand and believe the Holy Spirit works through our feelings and needs. To be able to see the importance of feelings and needs in our living, our daily life. And that's my hope at the end of this expectation. And so the plan is to compare Rosenberg and Chaminade. That Father Chaminade's 5 silences. Rosenberg has another. He doesn't call these. He doesn't actually distinguish between these 5 areas, but he mixes them all up in his presentation. What I've done is I've extracted them from his writings, and I've compared them to Chaminade. Okay. So, for example, he'll say words and words. He doesn't use the word signs. He uses the word gestures. He doesn't use the word imagination, but he uses the image of jackals and giraffe language to help us to understand the same thing that Chaminade meant by imagination, controlling our imagination. He doesn't use the word mind, but he does talk about perceptions. It's the same kind of an idea, but it's just a slightly different nuance to that word mind. It focuses more on how we see things. And then he doesn't talk about passions as such, but he does do a lot with feelings, and he connects those to needs.
Stan?
Yeah.
Could you just give us a little bit of a background on Rosenberg, who he was?
A little background on Rosenberg, okay? Rosenberg he's Jewish. He grew up, I think, in Detroit, Michigan, where he experienced, after World War II, the kind of persecution and bullying that took place for anybody who was Jewish because of the war and the connections with the war. And he could not understand why people were using violence. Or let's put it this way, he couldn't understand why some people were not violent and other people were violent. And he kind of spent his whole life pursuing that dream of why is it that people act this way. And he himself found in his family that there were some relatives that, especially his uncle who was not married and who cared for his mother, cared for the uncle's mother, in spite of all her difficulties as she aged and she became less able to control herself and her bodily functions and so on. But the way he saw his uncle so lovingly taking care of this grandmother of his, and it kind of left a permanent impression on him. What is it that does that? And I think that being Jewish also, you probably read the book. Who's the guy that was in the concentration camp?
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl. And he kind of experienced the same kind of thing that Viktor Frankl did. How do you maintain your balance in spite of such very harsh conditions that they lived through? So he was a psychologist, and then he went to get his degree in psychiatry, and he studied all these guys, like Jung, all those guys. I don't even know the names of them. I read some of their works and I studied some of them, but he studied them all, and he saw that they were missing that human aspect, that they were more clinical, that it was all head way of dealing with people with problems, conflicts. And so he was able to take his own background, his Jewish background, and his experience with counseling, and he found that this was a way that really spoke to the problems of today and how to deal with them. And he saw miracles take place in his presence, where he could see people changing it when they begin to deal with, let's say, their words, their gestures, their imagination, their signs, their mind, and so on. So he saw that. Is that helpful? All right. Let's see what we got here. So I'm going to do a little introduction to the language of nonviolence, and I'm going to show her the language of nonviolence, namely compassionate communication, to give a sharper focus to the system of virtues. Right? So I'm going to show you a lot about that. Then I'll give you some homework, because being a homework teacher, I have to do homework. All right, so let's go right into this thing here. We'll talk about a change of perspective. Let's see if I can make this come alive. Okay. Yep. Okay, so let's begin with this word need. What does that word need mean to you? When you hear the word need, what are you hearing? What are some of the things that it resonates inside of you when you hear just that word? We're doing a word association. I'm not going to be able to write it down. I don't have the chalkboard. So what does that word need mean to you?
Void, a lack, or
Void,
missing something.
Lack, okay. What else does it mean?
It's a want or a desire.
Want, a desire.
Important.
It's
Important.
important want, important desire. It's not something that you can just slough off and say, well, that's not important. So it's a need is something very important. It's a want, it's a desire, it's a longing, it's a hunger, okay? I'm not going to ask you to share with your neighbor. I'm just going to say, Augustine calls it a restlessness, okay? He calls it, other people call it something else. They'll call it a yearning, a longing, something things we talk about, a deep quest, an unfulfilled desire. Rosenberg calls it a resource that life requires to sustain itself. Okay, and I will give you a handout on this, so you don't have to take a lot of notes on that. Remember in Maslow, some of you studied Maslow, they talked about the hierarchy of needs, and he talked about the importance of taking care of physical needs before you can take care of safety needs and love, belonging, so on and so forth. Finally, it comes to self, maturity, where you're able to move around and feel like you're a real person. Okay, your needs are taken care of. So what I have here is a list of needs that that Mary's going to pass out to you. Okay. So you can take a look at this needs list, and while you're looking at that paper, I'm going to show Mike what we have here. Basically, it's divided into 7 areas. I'm not sure that you can see that, Mike, but autonomy is one major area, just being independent. Celebration, there's some way of celebrating life. Integrity, your own personal integrity. Interdependence, working with other people socially. Physical nurturance, like eating and so forth. Play, and spiritual communion. These are the 7 basic areas you'll see on this paper. It's not the only way of doing it, but it's one way, okay? And you'll notice that underneath it, it's broken down into these different words. So you have, under autonomy, you'll have choices, to be able to dream and make goals and set your own values. choosing plans to fulfill your dreams. Under celebration, creating of life, dreams fulfilled. Losses of loved ones, dreams, and so mourning, so celebrating death. These are all kinds of needs that we have. There are more than this, but basically these are some of the basic needs. So I'd like you to look at that list of needs and just take a look at the paper that you wrote. You wrote down 5 things that you did since you woke up this morning, and see if you can connect what you did this morning to one of these needs. Just take a minute to do that.
I let the cat out. What part would that be? What need would be met? That's the first thing I did because it was driving me nuts.
So Mary said that she let her cat out. She wants to know what need that meant.
Some peace. Autonomy. No. I would say peace.
Peace. Okay, so let's take any 3 of those things. What need did you meet by doing those 3? Anybody want to share that? What were some of the things that what were some of the things that you noticed? You did some different things, and what need were you trying to meet by doing it? Somebody share? Yes?
Okay. I started by prepping what I was bringing this morning. So I had a goal in mind. That was autonomy.
Okay, so she said that she did prepping before she took off this morning from New York, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, so she has autonomy and also
I walk my dog, so that was a
physical need. Okay,
And
walking the dog.
before I began my trip, I prayed, so it's spiritual.
Okay, very good. All right. Anybody else want to share what they did? Yes, Joanne.
I prayed, that was a spiritual need. I showered, that was a physical need. And I threw in a wash, that was autonomy.
Okay, so she prayed and she showered and threw in some wash, and she met those 3 different needs. Okay. Anybody else have something they want to share?
Well, for me, coming here to the Mariners Center this morning is partly autonomy. Autonomy was partly celebration, I think, because it ties in with my values, my dreams, and it's very fulfilling to gather with y'all.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just coming here was autonomy and also celebrating your dreams.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything on your list that did not meet a need? If you did something that didn't meet a need, yes?
Checking my email.
Joanne said she checked her email, but that didn't meet any need.
It didn't have to. No, I didn't have to do
Well, you
it.
didn't have to do it, but
I
you
just-
did it.
I chose to do it, but
And what
it
do you
didn't
want?
really meet any need. It didn't give me anything to make my day better.
It did though. It did mean you want to do it.
And sometimes I think it's more force of habit, or almost obsession,
So
rather than meeting a need.
So it could be an obsession, but it's a routine that you've gotten into. And originally it did meet a need. And what was the need that it originally meant?
Well, I would think probably autonomy.
Autonomy?
Um,
Maybe connectedness?
it could be connectedness.
'Cause maybe it was one of your children that you wanted to see if they wrote anything on there. Didn't really, so you didn't really care.
But when I look at it from the perspective of we did not have this technology 20 years ago.
Right.
And my life was just fine without checking into electronics. And when I can't get to electronics because I'm at the Cape or some other place where I have no access, my life is not horrible. So to me, I'm not meeting a need. as much as just doing something out of habit.
Habit, okay. So,
I don't disagree with that.
yes. So she said she's not really meeting a need, but she's doing it out of habit. Yes, Mary.
I try to make sure I do check email or text, because the main thing I think in my head is somebody's emailed me or texted me there's something I should know before I leave. Because I have some musicians that get together Thursday morning. I didn't check my text, and the one man that's visiting the solo wasn't going to make it. I didn't know it until I got there. So it's true we didn't have it 20 years ago, but other people didn't take on it.
No, you're right. That aspect of it is right.
So what Mary said was that she checks her email before she goes, just to make sure that there wasn't any last minute changes that took place. Like that she's going for a choir practice, and this person would not be able to make it. And they send her that message, and she would know before she goes that that person's not going to be there. So it's kind of just for information, or just to be secure in what you're doing. You're not just wasting your time going all the way out to wherever it is. So it might be something like that. Okay.
No, that's a good point.
Okay. Other people did something that they didn't meet a need. Yes.
I started out the day in meditation, and meditation met that need of spiritual communication. And then I gathered, I went to get salad fixings, and so I guess it really comes down to what does that behavior represent, what need does it fill? For me, that going to get the salad filled the need of closeness, community, nurturing others physically. And then as these ladies were talking about, I check my email because someone like Linda might send me a joke. And so for me, the email is about laughter. It's about, I might see someone else might send me some art. It might be connection. It might be making my life more beautiful. So it's, I guess, whatever that behavior is, what need does it need? It needs different needs for different people.
Okay, so what she said was that she, I guess sum up, let's just be the last part that you said, aside from getting the salad and all those things. It's just different needs, different activities meet different needs at different times for different people. It's not always the same, but basically, it does meet one of those needs. Okay, that's another thing. All right, let me just move on. The point that I'm trying to make here is that we do things to meet a need. All right, and was there anything that you didn't meet a need? We talked about it. It probably does. And here's what Rosenberg says in his presentation: that we only do things to meet a need. So the corollary to that also is everyone's needs are important. Nobody's needs are more important than anybody else's. If it's a need, then it means that it's important. In fact, I forgot to put that up there.
Now I have a question on it.
Sure. Yeah.
Going for what Joanne said, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have to check emails every day. So something's changed that now we kind of have to.
And what I was thinking too was, yes, it does, as Mary said, give you information you may need, but did I need to do that as one of the first 5 things I did in the morning? No, that was my point. I could have done that later on. You almost have to prioritize your needs.
If we're aware of it.
If we're aware of it.
Yes, and that's what I think is the beautiful thing about nonviolent communication and connecting with the 5 silences and mindfulness that we've been talking about in our NACMS thing. Okay, we can choose how we want to live based on needs rather than just hamper scamper. Say, well, I don't have any criteria for choosing what I'm doing. No, if it's true that everyone's needs are important and we only do things to meet a need, then we can be conscious of the fact that we're doing this for this reason. Now, there's also another side to it too. There was a mother that came to a workshop of Rosenberg, and she said, there are some things that you just have to do. You don't like to do them, and you hate to do them, but you do them anyway. For example, she says, I'm a mother. I got to cook. I have to cook. I hate cooking. I cooked for 20 years, and I've hated every day of it. Okay? And so he said, well, I hope that by the end of this conference, you'll be able to see another side to that. Okay? So the story goes on. Mother went home, and she told her family, I'm not cooking anymore. Okay? So 2 weeks later, 2 of her sons come to the workshop. And they ask, they say, my mother was here for a workshop, and she liked your presentation, but she told us that she's not going to cook anymore. He said, oh, you're the one. He said, I want to know what happened. So they said, well, when she told us at supper that she's not going to cook anymore, they all said, thanks be to God. Because they said, all we heard about, all the time, every one of those meals for 20 years was, I hate cooking, and it's such a bore, and I just disgusted. It was a terrible situation that they were sitting at table listening to all this griping, bad stuff that's going on. So, but the point, I don't think that she did stop cooking. I mean, he doesn't finish the story with that, but I don't think he did. I think what she did was she changed her perspective. So now she's not cooking because she has to cook. She's cooking because she loves her family. So the perspective is, she's changing the need that she is trying to meet is to nurture her family rather than how hard it is to do these kind of things. But she's taking care of herself also. She's seeing that her needs are important and that she has to do something to care for that. Okay, so that's kind of another side to it. Yes.
I want to talk about making the bed. Every morning when I get up in the morning, it's one of the first things I do is make the bed. And I find myself arguing with myself about making the bed. Because my mother always just say, if you make your bed, the house or the room looks cleaner. So it's almost like I do it to please my mother. And if I don't do it, it's like I'm very reckless that day. I'm not going to make my bed. Like I'm being independent. But I don't understand what that need is, because it's almost like I was still obeying my mother to make that bed instead of just wanting to make the bed myself.
Okay,
What's
I would say, Mary, this is a direct answer to your question. Those kind of questions should be directed to your therapist, not your
Hey, Stan, real quick on that though. There's a YouTube video of I think he was an admiral in the Navy who gave a presentation at a college commencement.
Yeah.
And he said that making your bed is a good thing because the first thing you do is accomplish something, and that sets the tone for the rest of the day. So he turned that like the cooking thing. He turned it from a chore to an accomplishment, something to celebrate. So Mary, think about that. And I won't charge you any fees.
Thank you, Mike. That's a better answer than the one that I gave.
I have to write that down.
So everybody's needs are important. I put that on that paper underneath us. Keep that in mind. And both their needs and our needs are important. Okay. Now, there is never a conflict with needs. Did you read my presentation? We never negotiate needs, because a need is a resource that life requires. You don't negotiate needs. You have to have it, otherwise you die. Right? So what do we do about this? The conflict always comes in with strategies. Okay? So we negotiate strategies. We never negotiate needs. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when there's a conflict between a husband and a wife, it's never a conflict of needs. It's always a strategy. And once you understand what the need is, because your needs are going to be the same. It may not be the same need. Okay, like for example, I may want rest and she may want play. So there's a conflict that way, but it's not really a conflict because both those needs have to be met. Otherwise, you're not going to live. You have to have rest and you have to have play in your life. So what you do is you negotiate a strategy to get both needs met. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So the negotiation takes place on the strategies, not on the needs. You need your rest, and she needs to play. So how do we do this together? That's up to you to figure out a strategy. Okay? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
All right. So I think this is something that nonviolent communication throws light on a lot of these things that we're going to talk about with silences. Yes, Mary.
When two people argue, in other words, it's actually a strategy. They're both using a different strategy to get their needs met. Is that correct?
So Mary says, if there are two people are in argument, they're really arguing about a strategy to get the need met. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so you want to know if that's what it. According to this, it would be that. You know, there's a conflict that's going to be in the strategy. Can you think of an example between us, because we had several disagreements over the past couple of years. One recently. There was one. I was thinking about it.
Careful.
Yeah, I know. But it was really about strategy, and as long as we kept talking about the strategy, we were not going to become to any
Yeah,
kind
that's
of.
interesting.
But once we were to focus on the need, then I think it worked out okay. I mean, the only examples I can give are where you're wrong and I'm right. That's not going to work. Okay, so think of a time when you needed something. All right, you needed something, and someone came and helped you to get that need. Think of a time. You can write it down if you want. Just think about a time that stands out. You were in need. Out of the clear blue sky, somebody came and helped. Share that with your neighbor. Share that with your neighbor.
Wow.
Wow.
Think of a time when you were in need of something. Mary and Joanne and Mary, you can.
Okay. I just remember when I was a child, and my mother was and I had raised my brother and sister. Neighbor across the street came and took my younger sister, so I, as a 10-year-old, yeah, I probably could not hard to voice.
Sharing someone
She recognized
came to our help when we were in need.
For granted.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not something you run around and.
No, I haven't.
It was not certainly but it is certainly like that has been somewhere. So in that sense, I mean, we're back to the great.
You needed someone. Yeah, over there.
Okay. Does anybody want to share an example of when they were in need and someone out of the clear blue sky came and helped them? Somebody's telephone.
That's mine.
That are the angels.
Yeah, all the angels are calling us. Anybody want to share something that happened that in need, desperately in need of somebody out of the clear blue sky came?
Well, last year, I went through a rough patch with my health, and I found myself very dependent. I couldn't even lift a pitcher of water, So I reached out to folks, and folks responded amazingly, beautifully, and such loving kindness. I was even teasing, Sister Laura, an opportunity to stop by to visit me a couple of times last year in terms of, on her way to Cape May, program work, the bicentennial. And so I called her my Dayton laundry lady. I couldn't even take my laundry downstairs, and she would do my laundry for me and make the beds and stuff. It was just wonderful. God graced me with these wonderful helpers all through the year.
Okay, I'm sure all of you had experiences like that. Just a need. somebody else. It's like, okay, think of a time when someone else was in need and you went and helped them. Think of a time when someone else, and without being prompted, you just saw it and you just responded immediately. Okay, share that with you. You can share with Joy because no, because she, yeah, the two of you can share.
Just that it was going through lots of like reading and was home alone and didn't know how to navigate without having someone else. And I was able to help him get him out of his funk. I was back in it today. And get him to see the different side of life and find that, revitalize that eagerness to tackle this excitement to travel.
Okay. Anybody want to share an experience that they had when they saw somebody in need and they just responded to this without even being prompted?
Think about the people that are hungry on the street. And so we go to a restaurant and get a little bit extra.
Okay.
Give it to them.
So Diane said that when she thinks about people that are on the street that don't have food. So when she goes to a restaurant, she'll take some of what she has and give it to the people when they come out. And there are probably other examples that you have of you saw somebody in need. It could be a simple thing like somebody's trying to get through the door and they have boxes and you just spontaneously. Okay. So let me ask you this question: how did you feel? How did you feel in those examples?
Felt useful.
Useful, felt useful. Okay.
Grateful.
Grateful.
Felt needed.
Needed. Okay. So you had a purpose in your life. You know, it was fulfilling something good. You were doing something to help somebody else have a more wholesome type of life. Okay, feelings are our friends. They tell us about our needs. Feelings indicate whether we have or have not fulfilled needs. So we felt grateful, we felt joy. Okay, and these are four basic feelings. You can have derivatives of this. You know, frustrated or super angry or something. You know, these are basic feelings that we have. And basically, what they're saying is that when we have our needs filled, we feel glad. When our needs are met, we feel glad. When we feel uncomfortable because our needs are not being met, okay? So we'll feel mad or sad or scared. It's because we were afraid or restless or something. The need is not being met, okay? These feelings tell us about our needs. That's the purpose of the feelings. So these feelings also move us to do something. And NEMFC, they connect needs and feelings. They go together. Okay? The feelings are always pointing toward needs. They're not. So our greatest joy comes in getting our needs met and in helping others to get their needs met. Okay. It's both their needs and ours that are important. Indicate that this is what nonviolent communication says. Whatever is most alive in us, that's a need. So the need is crying out. Is where we get our energy from. Do you know of anybody who does not have any needs? And the only people that I can think of that don't have needs are those who are dead.
They need to be buried.
They don't need to be buried. We need to have them buried.
We don't want to deal with that. So, a need is a resource that life requires to sustain itself. And needs indicate what's most alive in us at any moment. So if we look at it through the eyes of faith, we see that need is the manifestation of God's life in us that keeps us alive. This is what God, when God's life leaves us, we die, right? And when we connect with God's life in people, that's where we get our greatest joy. That's what Jesus and Mary did, and that's where the five silences come in. Okay? You know, if you look at the Gospels, you'll see that Jesus was connecting with people in their need. He always was Mary. We can give him one of the passages. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. We all studied the scripture passages about Mary. We see that she was there at the moment of need. Okay? So we're energized when we connect on the level of needs, and we do so because when we touch a need, we're touching the very life of God in the other person. This is the spirituality that I think is really important. That's the reason why we feel so energized when we work in a soup kitchen. We're touching people in need. We're helping people who are homeless that don't have food, or something. And we understand that. Okay? So to be violent is impossible when we focus on needs. Okay? And if you want to know more about it, you can go to the website for nonviolent communication. I'm going to leave that topic and go on to the next. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. Understand, did Dr. Rosenberg, did he make the spiritual connections, or are those spiritual connections at the end, is that your work?
It's both. He has a book called Spirituality of Nonviolent Communication. It's a book that's published. I think I may have it out there, I'm not sure. Do you remember seeing it out there? Spirituality of Nonviolent Communication. Anyway, it is, it's there. And what I've done is I've made it in, he does not talk about God. He talks about divine energy.
Ah.
Okay? And when we were at the assembly last summer, Elio De Leo talked about the consciousness, that God is consciousness. And I've reflected a lot about that, especially in the light of divine energy, that consciousness, God is consciousness, God is divine energy, and we participate in that, you know, that whole spirituality that goes in there. And I find it very energizing.
Me too.
Yeah.
That was a life-changing experience.
It was very, very encouraging to hear her talk like that, because she's not, I can say more about it. All right, thank you for that question. I'm not sure, where is our time?
It's 11:30. We have about another half hour.
Half an hour. Okay, let's see how far we can get with this. There are 4 components. This goes. There are 4 components of nonviolent communication. I think all of these shed some light again on the 5 silences. Hopefully, if I get through this very quickly, we'll be able to make that comparison more directly with the question. The first component of nonviolent communication is observation. The second one is dealing with feelings and needs and then requests. That's the 4 things that he talks about in his book. Let's just talk about the first component, observation. And I think this can help us a lot with all of these silences, because once we understand what he means by observation, then we can do something. An observation, he says, is where you describe what you see. It's like a snapshot. You take a camera and you take a picture. The picture, it just gives you what happened, that's all. It doesn't put any moral judgment on it, right? So there's no moralistic judgment attached to a picture. It's like a snapshot. And the word judgment, usually we mean it means something like thought. It's a thought about some kind of reality, a moralistic judgment about some kind of reality. And so it has a good or bad attached to it, right or wrong. So when you see something, he says, make an observation, not a moralistic judgment. Let's practice. Let's see what happens. I want you to give me a thumbs up if it's an observation, and if it's not an observation, give me a thumbs down. Okay? It's a thought, basically. Let's try this. I see an apple on the kitchen table. Is that an observation or is that an observation? I hear a train whistle. Is that a thought or is that an observation? You started talking while I was talking. Is that a thought or is that an observation? Okay. It's an observation. It's just back. It's not really a judgment. It could be, depending on what the situation is. That apple shouldn't be on the table. You guys are really good at this. I think I'm wasting my time with these exercises. The train is too loud. Okay, that's a thought. What about you're rude? That's obvious. Judgments are suicidal attempts to get a need met. So when we make a thought, when we give somebody a thought, like you say, I feel threatened. I don't want to use real examples or anything, you know.
It was suicidal because I walked away.
So we're trying to get a need met, but we're not going to get it met by doing that. That's what a thought is, a judgment. Okay? I hate you, you know. I hate you. You never give me a chance to be autonomous. And those are judgments. Let's practice again. You're crazy.
That's an observation.
That's an observation.
He said he did not agree with you. Okay, yeah, because if we put that word "he said," right, now it's an observation. You know, you're quoting what the person. I didn't put him in quotation marks, but I'm tricky in that. I'm stupid. This is how many times we say this of ourselves. This is a judgment, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about, I don't understand this problem.
That's an observation.
Okay. No. You're a thief.
Did you see them steal it?
You took my pencil when I left my desk.
Could be an observation.
It could be the
You were watching them take it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You don't know. Okay. But the way it's stated here, without making any of those other inferences, it's probably an observation. You're mean.
That's a thought.
You said you'd play cards with me last night and you didn't.
Observation.
Okay. So these are observations. Okay. What's the difference between an observation and a thought? See the difference? Okay.
Yes.
Judgments or thoughts are suicidal attempts to get a need met. Go back over those examples. You can see that we're trying to get a need met. Okay, so the first component of the process is that we want to make an observation when we're dealing with somebody. It doesn't mean that we don't have any values, moral values. What we're saying is that when we are looking at a situation, we don't want to put a moralistic judgment on what we see. Okay, otherwise, it blocks our connection with others. Okay. So your homework is to translate into video pictures or slide photos what you see. Ask that question, what do you see? Go ahead, if you want more information, you can go back to that site. Okay, this is this stuff. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about feelings. I already did say something about feelings, but I'm going to say some more about it. I think at this point, though, it's the second component of nonviolent communication is feelings. The first one was observation, and the second one is how did you feel when you saw that? Right? That's the second thing that's important. And then we go on to how did you feel?
Stan?
Yeah.
When you're in a situation with somebody who is, let's say, yelling at you.
Yeah.
To me, it would be a thought to say to that person, you seem upset, because that's a judgment on my part. But how would you draw attention to that non-violently with what's going on to help identify that person's need?
Okay, I think that the second component is you could say, how you feel. Like I said, I feel threatened, which was not really a feeling, it was a thought. Okay? If I had said, I feel scared by what you said, or by what you're doing, how do you feel? You can ask, you can check out, are you feeling scared, or are you feeling angry about this particular thing? You can
So
check
you
them.
don't call attention to what I think you're expressing. It's more what I'm.
Well, at that, you first have to deal with your own feelings in a case like that. And then I think you have to deal with, are you checking, you check out to see if they're really feeling this way, and what is the need underneath it. We're going to get to that. Does that help?
Yeah.
It just takes practice.
Yeah.
It does take practice.
There's a lot of
Usually
work.
what the trips on me really good, but I'm learning this more and more. And
Mary, there's certain things you should only talk to your therapist about. Okay, so the second component is, how did you feel when you saw this observation? And it's important for us to be aware of how we feel about these things, because a lot of times it's more about us than it is something else. And feelings are amoral. They're neither good nor bad. And I think that's really important, that they're not right and they're not wrong. So for example, you'll hear people say, well, those are negative feelings. Well, I get that. That's a warning sign goes up when they use that expression, because that blocks your understanding of the next part. Okay? So it's really important to, feelings just are, as I point out, they're like lights on a dashboard, they're indicators, that's all they do. Okay? And they're warning signs. So say, take heed, see what's going on here. Feelings indicate whether we have or have not filled our need. And there are four basic feelings, as I said before, the derivatives of those same four ones. Feelings that express fulfillment, I mentioned those already, I'm glad. There are uncomfortable feelings, they tell us that our needs are not met. I said that already too. What I would like to try is get to this next part. We have to name them correctly. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get to the next part, which is our needs. And so this is a list of things that we call feelings, but they're not really feelings. They're thoughts. Can we give these out?
Sure.
These are thoughts. These are not really. Non-staple. And you may also look on the back of your needs list. Those are four feelings that I put on there that indicate what the needs are or not. I forgot to mention that part. So these are words that we sometimes use, and we preface the word with the word feeling. So I am feeling abandoned. It's not really a feeling, it's a thought. Okay? You can see that these are just a small list of some of the things that are there. So if you use these words, they don't help you to connect with your need. It focuses on your thoughts. So these are thought words or judgments. They're evaluations. Right? When we use thought words, it's difficult to connect with our needs. Feelings are friends when we name them correctly, and they tell us about our needs. And I gave you the papers already. What are the causes of feelings? Let's experiment. Okay, so I put up on a wall over here, you'll see there's the word sad here, there's the word mad, and there's scared. Okay, in 4 different places there. And I'm not sure what this is, but let's see what this does. I'm going to go back on that. So I'm going to read something here, and I want you to stand up and physically go to one of those signs when I read this statement. Okay? How do you feel when I read this statement? Do you feel mad, sad, scared? All right, let's stand up for just a second. Get ready to move around. One of your friends calls you stupid in front of somebody else. How do you feel? One of your friends calls you stupid in front of your friend. How do you feel? You feel mad or sad or scared. Okay,
Where's the man sign?
here's another one. You see a bigger child push a smaller child. How do you feel? They're all standing by the sign that says mad. Okay. You hear someone make a joke about someone who's not present. You hear someone make a joke about someone who's not present. You make a lot of mistakes on the assignment that you're given.
We're scared.
You make a lot of mistakes on the assignment that you're given. You fall down and you rip your clothes. Okay, let's sit back down again. So, what did you notice about this exercise, besides the fact that you got up out of your seats?
People think differently.
People think differently. Okay, they think differently when they hear a situation, or do they feel different?
Both, I think. I think both, but they feel differently.
Okay, they feel differently, but it's because they think differently that they feel differently.
You know what, Stan? I noticed there was one where you said someone was bullied and everybody went to sad. And what went through my mind is that they're all Marianists and they would all think alike with that one sadness. Maybe if they weren't, or from a different culture or different background.
Could be. Yes, did you want to say something?
Yeah, that one was weird. I felt when I stayed mad.
She was the only one that felt mad when we talked about the bullying. Yes.
Oh.
Did you want to say something about that?
But I think that maybe personal experience, I've been bullied.
Oh, there you go.
That could make a difference.
That tends to make me sympathize more with the person. It makes me mad.
Okay. Yes.
Sometimes it was hard to figure out what I was feeling. And I might have been feeling two things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I should have said that in the beginning,
Yeah.
that you can stand somewhere in between them. Okay? That's a good point, though. Sometimes there's a ambivalence. We don't really know where we want to put ourselves. Yeah. You could be frustrated. So that.
There's also some research that indicates that under the emotion of anger is actually scared and sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the funny thing of it is, when I was telling Stan on the way up, there was on Facebook, I don't know if anybody saw it or anything, there were little videos on older women, like two old women, they were sisters, I could kind of relate. And almost they would curse at each other, you know, they'd say something about, well, I gave you the money, and it's, you know, whatever. And they both kind of thought it was funny, but I really looked at it like, sad. And I put that in there. But when we talk about our feelings, how, you know, I could relate with what he was talking about with how different people, maybe because I'm old, I have a sister.
Just perspective is different. I wouldn't put those labels on, just perspective.
Yeah, but they took it off. I didn't see it.
Okay,
Stan, that was a good experiment. I kind of felt confused, so I just stayed where I was.
You were in your own corner.
There are certain things that you should talk to your therapist about. Okay.
I have to give him my business cards.
I didn't see it in any of our corners.
Okay, the purpose of this, I lost my projector on this, but it doesn't matter. The purpose of this exercise was to bring out the idea that someone else is not the cause of our feelings. What someone does is not the cause of we don't blame them for how we feel. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The cause of our feelings is our perception of what that is.
Ownership.
Ownership. Yeah, we take ownership for how we feel when we say, I feel this way because I perceive it this way, or I own these values of mine. I'm actually bouncing those incidents off my own personal values, and then I have those feelings swell up in me. Okay, Mary, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I had to get that call. The word, some of the thoughts, words, if you hear somebody say them, abandoned or attacked or betrayed or threatened, when you feel like they're trying to put the blame on you, you can connect that it isn't their true feeling. And it's easy to disconnect. And I think we do that sometimes and we don't realize it because we don't know the true feelings of what the person is trying to say. And I think that's a lot of times the things that get bogged down in our relationships.
That's a good point that Mary just made. It's easier for us to connect with someone when we understand their feelings. And when we understand their perspective. Okay? Now here's where I guess Father Shaman's 5 silences again come in. Because we talk about the mind, silence of the mind. The mind, with Shaman traditionally what we thought about this is we need to put things into our mind that are going to be wholesome and they're going to be helping us to be more like Christ. And that's what Rosenberg is saying in his thing. Okay? Your feelings are caused by your perceptions, and your perceptions are caused by your values, of course. All right. There's another little piece that I have here. I'm not sure I can bring it up at this time, but let me try it and see if it'll come up. I don't remember what was on this particular set of slides. The connection between silence of mind and thing. So how much violence is caused by what we put into our mind is what I'm saying here. And we did the feeling exercise recently. I did those words, so that's not going to help us any. Let me see if I can just, let me see if I can skip through these real fast, okay? These are just some of the examples that I gave you. Let me see if I can go to we have to be careful what we put into our minds. That's the part that I was getting to here. Feelings are caused by not what others do, but are caused by our perceptions. And I'm not sure if I had a slide before that. Okay, this is the one I wanted. This is the slide that I wanted to show you. Feelings are caused by our perceptions. Look at this picture. What is that? Is that a vase or is that 2 faces? Our perception gives us the thing, okay? Now here's the thing. We are perfectly made. Like this is coming from John Powell's book, Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? Why Am I Afraid to Love? Why Powell's. If you look in his book, he's got this little triangle, and he says, God made us perfectly balanced. Our feelings are proportionate to our behavior, and they're proportionate to our perception. If you change any one of these sides of the triangle, it changes the other. This is an equilateral triangle. That's the definition of it. And I think that that's a big insight into understanding the 5 silences too. If we can be careful of what we put into our mind, it's going to affect how we behave. And how we behave also affects the way we speak. And so on. Okay, so those things are the thing that I like about Rosenberg, and what I don't like about him, is that he doesn't break down nonviolent communication with these 5 silences. He just mixes them all together, and he shows you that they're always interrelated. The thing I like about Chaminade is he breaks them down, but the thing I don't like about Chaminade is it seems to be they're independent of each other, whereas they're not. Rosenberg shows us that the way our mind is fed, that's how we're going to feel. And how we feel is, what we put into our imagination is going to affect the way we, see what I'm saying? They're all interconnected. The beautiful thing about this, the system of virtues is it's something that we can go over and over all our life. Just keep going over them. And we see how we have to work on all those 5 areas all the time to make sure that we're going to become like Christ. How much time do I have left?
About 10 more minutes.
Okay, what I'd like to do then is I would like to sing a song. I'm with this mindfulness and the mindfulness and what's the thing? The 5 silences. And one of the things that I want to do for this course that I'm taking is to write music. This is a song that I wrote several years ago about feelings, but I never really used it. Okay? But let me just try it with you. You be my guinea pig. Okay? So this is to the tune of As with Gladness Men of Old. I have feelings all the time, and they tell me who I am. If you watch and listen to, you will see me through and through. Feelings tell about my need. Listen carefully and you'll see. When I'm angry, I feel mad. I am hurting very bad. Beats are shouting loud and strong. Listen, I am hurting now. What's the need that's crying out? Listen carefully and you'll see. When I cry, I'm feeling sad. What's the need that is not met? When I frown, I'm feeling sad. There's a need I have not known. Listen carefully and you'll see. Feeling sad is about my needs. When I'm glad, you'll see me smile. That's because my needs are met. When I'm happy, I will smile. When I smile, I'm feeling glad. Satisfied my needs must be. Listen carefully and you'll see. I feel scared when I could die. When I know I feel quite scared. Like when someone speeds right by. My need for safety shouts and cries. Life is precious, that's a need. When in danger, I feel scared. I have feelings all the time. It's the spirit shining through. It's the resource that I need to live and flourish and be alive. Feelings tell you all about me. The spirit speaks right through my needs.
There's a superstar song at the Cape. It's done with paper plate faces that the kids do.
I just happened to have brought them with me.
I'll just say one thing.
Go ahead, one thing only.
About
But I noticed this with Stan. Sometimes we know our feelings, but we don't know our needs.
That's true.
And that's
Very true.
it's very tricky when you're in a situation like that. You know, you see the person sad, and you can tell that they don't know their needs. And that not always a good situation to be in.
I'm Olivia. Okay. So I didn't want to insult you. So I could also do the same thing. See if I can do it again. If I did This one is just the feeling. I have feelings all the time, and they tell me who I am.
If you watch and listen to, you will see me through and through. Feelings tell about my need. Listen carefully and you'll see.
And we have the kids put on their little try to sing with me. But I didn't want to insult you with that version of it, so I used the as what men of gladness in the past. Okay. Actually, I had that in mind. I used that one as the beginning. Okay.
And
But
the
then
one,
I
the one that the little kids sing, it's I have feelings deep inside
that's
me,
another one. Yes.
and my other, I can't remember all the words.
Yes.
But as each feeling is brought up, then they put it in front of their face.
Right.
And the kids love it.
Yeah, they
The
do.
kids love it. And they get it.
Mhm.
They get it.
They do, yes.
Yeah.
What they don't get, though, is the connection between feelings and needs. And that's the thing I feel sad
And
about.
feelings and behavior. They don't get that
No.
connection.
And
at
they
all.
say what they want to share their feelings, but they don't see the connection between feelings and needs. So they want to share their feelings, but what they really ought to be sharing is what do they need that their feeling is coming out. That's the sad part. Yes.
I was just going to say, like when you were doing the song, I was thinking of babies who are a great model to us of expressing, a need. It's like,
They're not
and they don't
inhibited.
filter and all. They just kind of say, I have a need, feed me, or I have a
Yeah.
need, change me, I have a need. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So they're a good model to us because
So
as we get adults, we
the cause of our
layers.
feelings is our perception. That's the point I wanted to make. Okay, and the feelings are okay because they're only indicators. You can feel angry and there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, it's not right or wrong. You see how far I go here. So I'm done with the second component, and I think we'll have to stop with that. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much time we have left.
Well, does anybody have any comments or questions that they want to share with Brother Stan, either about the nonviolent communication or the silences?
When Ray and I will be married 50 years this year, and we have learned is that sometimes I'll say something to him and he gets angry. And I've learned to say, what did you just hear? Because his perception of what he heard and what I meant can often be entirely different. And I've learned over the years to avoid an argument by saying, what have you heard? And then he says it, and then I say what I meant. And then we have a common ground instead of two people with two different perceptions of what just happened.
That's a good point because that's exactly what we try to do with nonviolent communication, that four-part process. What did you hear?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. What I'd like to do is close with this one song, if I can. This is a song that Nick Cardellino wrote for the musical spectacle. And what I've done is I've adapted this. On the one side is the music. Okay. On the one side is the music. The other side is the poem. I'm like a brook. Okay, come with this way. There's enough. Yeah. In our class with nonviolent mindfulness and the five silences. George Lischak wrote this poem. I mean, he actually wrote the prayer for the poem that you see on the backside. What I'm going to do is I'll just, for those of you who haven't heard the music yet, I'll just. I am like a brook that's flowing, one that's full and tired can see. Some rocks may hold me off from going, but I won't try to fight it. In time I grow broader and deeper, and then I rise above the clouds and flow along again. Let's try it. I am like a brook that's flowing, one that's gentle and quiet. Some rocks may hold me off from going, but I won't try to fight it. In time I grow broader and deeper, and then I rise above the rocks and flow along again. Sing it again, this time we'll say the prayer. I am like a brook. Let me be truly like a brook, alive with passion and energy. That's flowing, one that's gentle and quiet. I'm sorry, I have the wrong shape. So, some rocks. Let's go to some rocks. Some rocks may hold me up from going.
Do not let me be so obsessed with the obstacles that I lose sight of my purpose.
But I will try to find it.
Help me always to focus my efforts on the mission of your mother to bring you into the world.
In time I grow broader and deeper, and then
Help me to seek and find resources, internal and external, temporal and spiritual, to strengthen me in my callings and mission.
I rise above the rocks and flow along again.
Help me to trust in you as Mary did, even when the end is unclear. This is how I'm going to work. Amen.
Thank you. I think it's a nice way to
Thank you. You should do something with our friend.
There's a little book that was written back in the 60s by Father Clemens. But what I like about this book is it gives questions. Okay, so for example, let's take this one about, let's take patience. Do I unite myself to the graces and virtues with Christ and Mary merited in practicing heroic patience during the Passion? So we are, Shaman wants us to unite ourselves to the mysteries of Christ and Mary in going through whatever we're going through, whether it's our use of words or signs or imagination, mind, so on. To unite ourselves to Christ and Mary, that's the real purpose of this. And I think nonviolent communication helps us to put on the mind and the heart and the actions of Christ. So if somehow we could get questions, I think that's what I would like to work on next, is to develop questions that we could reflect on, like you said, for a retreat, or just take a day off and just ponder, how can I be more Christ-like in my use of words? How can I be more Christ-like in my use of the imagination and so on? So that's where I think I would like to go with it. I wrote this little paper here. It's kind of a summary of what I told you, all right? And I have another paper, if you're interested, it's kind of a summary of the talk that I gave. So you can have that one also. It has some statements on it.
You mentioned the author. What is the name of the book?
This is Father Clemens, Bert Clemens.
What the title of the book was?
The purposes of the book, the title is The System of Virtues of Father Shaman.
Can you still get it?
I think they sent us this when we were in that NACMS program. I think I got a copy of this from them. Yeah, I was really happy to get that because I was looking for it.
I don't recall that.
It's a brand new copy. I'm sure that's from them. So if I got it from
I put
somebody
them in that
else,
book. One book.
Probably ordered from Amazon. I'm sure Amazon.
maybe Amazon.
Yeah, or go through NACMS. Go through NACMS.
Okay.
Did you see it?
All right. But
I have it, but I'm not sure it looks like that. There's a different book. It's bigger, but the title is almost the same, and it's the same color.
okay. You want to say something to the group?
You want to say
He
something?
wanted to say something.
Ah. Mike, are you still there?
Is he still there?
I don't know if you want.
Yes.
Okay, Mike, did you want to say something to the group?
Oh, well, thank you for letting me sit in on it. I appreciated it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much for participating.
Oh, you're welcome. I just kind of wish Stan had held up those paper plate faces for the whole thing. But other than that-
Did you hear that feedback?
We love you, Stan. You know that.
By your heart, right? That's it. That's
All right. I will. I'm gonna download this and then I'll put it up on. Where did I put it up last time? YouTube or something? I'll send you the link.
Oh, good. Send me the link because I'll put it in the next letter that goes out,
Okay.
and then maybe for the ML when we put our picture in the MLC-NA newsletter, you know, our picture in a little ripe about this meeting, we can put it in there too, so that people can watch it.
Good. Good.
Choose to.
All right.
Oh, you can virtually eat pizza with us. Sorry. Thank you so much, Mike.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.